The Hawai'i Sports Radio Network on 95.1 FM and AM 760 presents Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ule Agbayani.
Good morning, beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den. Paul Brecht, Alan Mia here on this Aloha Friday. No Ku'ule Agbayani today or next week as she's off in Japan taking a well-deserved trip away from work. In the meantime, still tons of positive energy here on this Aloha Friday as we have another fun show in store for you guys today. Still trying to do YouTube Aloha Friday shows as well. Got only one camera set up today. Ku'u took her camera with her, so we don't get the double look.
That's not allowed.
I know, it's crazy.
Just because she goes on vacation and she needs to take pictures of her, her travels, doesn't mean she can leave us hanging here.
Yeah, and she takes her camera too. Who
I
does
know.
she think she is?
Who does she think she is?
Oh,
she acts
my
like she
gosh.
owns it. For the record, it is her personal.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but wanted to give the beautiful people still some behind-the-scenes looks at what goes on Aloha Friday here in the den. So even during Ku's absence, we're going to try and share this one camera between the two of us today. Yesterday started out with some UH baseball talk, so Alan, I'll ask you how you're doing today before we get into that, but just so you know, that's where we're going first.
I'm doing all right. I look at it as you can't tell much from it, so I don't know. Well, I think what you saw was what we kind of predicted, but I still think maybe it's kind of hard for me to say after game one, but I would say maybe the Heat still yet. They'll make the adjustments, but I think usually in game 1 and 2 you see the MVP kind of take over.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know really how to explain that. You know what I mean? It's just I just think you just saw they didn't have a game plan for him, but they kind of saw what he brings to the table, and now they'll be able to game plan against him.
Yeah, no, we discussed it a little bit yesterday, how game 1 was always going to be in the Nuggets' favor. Obviously, 9 days off before coming into yesterday's game, comparatively speaking, to the Heat, who were forced to play a physical, emotionally draining 7-game series against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Nuggets just looked a little bit more fresh yesterday. Nonetheless, still a fun game. We'll talk about that later on in the show as well. Some Hawai'i Rainbow Warrior baseball awards came out yesterday, some Big West selections. We'll chit-chat about that and give you some updates regarding the Women's College World Series after day 1, give you what's going on here for before day 2. And we'll also wrap things up here today with a little bit of conversation previewing the NHL Stanley Cup Final Game 1 between the Panthers and the Golden Knights, baby.
I didn't expect that from you, so
I had to toss that in there for our Ku'ule Agbayani.
Man, I didn't expect that coming out of your mouth, but all right, yes, the Golden Knights.
No, I just wanted to get your reaction on that, but like I mentioned, gonna kick today off just like we did yesterday, UH baseball. We talked yesterday about a loss for them. Today we'll talk about some more positive stuff as yesterday all Big West team selections came out and 6 different Rainbow Warriors were honored across 3 separate teams, 2 first-teamers, 1 second-teamer, and 3 honorable mentions. First things first, that's a pretty good haul in terms of a team that going into their final series of the season was out of conference contention. They bring back 4 of those 6 players next season as well. If you are Coach Rich Hill and the staff, who obviously we talked in depth about losing pitching coach Matthew Troop yesterday, if you are losing your pitching coach, you do like to have, and we'll start at the first team, 2 first-team pitchers in Harry Bodendorf and Harry Gustin, or Harrison Bodendorf and Harry Gustin, being selected to the first team Big West.
Yeah, and I think what's crazy is you look at their class and Bodendorf is only a freshman, and then Gustin being, of course, just a year older as a sophomore. So you still get essentially at least one more, and 2 more out of both of them. So of course, because you can leave after your junior year, and usually if you're first team all Big West as a pitcher as well as offensive player or a fielder, you're going to get looks at in the draft. So therefore, it's not out of the realm of possibilities they leave after their junior year. So you have 1 and 2 respectively. But I think it's remarkable, and again, I think that speaks volumes to Matthew Troop and what he was able to do with this staff. And I'll be the first one to admit, and I'm around it, and I'm not being negative by any means. I just don't think this roster is still yet what Rich Hill wants for the future. I think right now it's been a good get me over and kind of just steady the boat after some tumultuous times with the former head coach and the program itself. And I think what they've been able to do, the staff with these players, has been truly remarkable. And that's, and that's kudos to the players for really putting their head down and grinding and getting, and then it's also a kudos to the coaching staff to be able to get the best out of them, the most out of them. I mean, you look at, of course, like you said, the pitching staff with 2 of the first teamers. Then you look at Matt Wong, I believe, was second team. And then the 3 honorable mentions, and I think it was Jacob Igawa, Stone Meow, and I don't know why the third one's eluding me. I don't mean no disrespect, and it'll come
Kyson
to me.
Donahue.
Kyson, thank you, Donahue. And so you look at those players, and I think if you looked at them individually, you go like, they're okay, they're good. Are they Big West worthy? But what they did as the season progressed, they got better and better and better. And then they also played well as a team. And I think that's been the thing for Rich Hill, is they got these guys to buy in, not only individually, but as a team, as a collective group. And it brings out the best in your ability. So it's a huge kudos for the program. And I'm pretty ecstatic that they were recognized by the media, because a lot of times Hawaii gets the shaft on a lot of these awards.
No, that's fair, because it's hard to get eyes out here sometimes, or at least you don't get as many prevalent voices who had eyes out here. So agreed. I'm glad they got recognized, 6 players recognized. And I'm glad you also bring up how this isn't necessarily where the Hawaii baseball program wants to end up. You didn't come this far just to get this far. You still have plenty more progress to go, but this is a good foundation to build on. And I think that's really what we saw this year and last year to an extent, but this season, especially with the Basebos, how they were able to progressively get better through this year. Their hitting progressively got better. I mean, they ended the season with their best offensive output in a series all year. Their pitching, obviously, was phenomenal throughout the season. They led the Big West throughout conference play in ERA. Give you a couple of quick facts on all of the selections. It's the first time since 2006 that Hawaii had 2 selections on the first team for pitchers. That was Tyler Davis and Stephen Wright back in 2006. Bodendorf was one of 3 relief pitchers on the first team this year. He is also the first freshman pitcher to make all-conference since 2005 for Hawaii, when Darryl Fisher-Baugh made it. He's the first-team selection for a freshman pitcher since 1993, when Andrew McNally was selected, and he was second among conference freshman pitchers with 66 strikeouts this season as a reliever. He's the master of the long save as well. All 5 of his saves this season came pitching over 2 innings worth. He got 7 outs or more in all 5 of those appearances. So a versatile piece for Rich Hill to use out of the bullpen, especially going forward as just a freshman. Is he's somebody who also showed he can go on the bump for a start here and there if need be. You also talk about Harry Gustin, a fellow southpaw. He was one of 3 starters on the first team in the Big West. 2.62 ERA in Big West play, which was 3rd amongst starting pitchers in the conference. He was the starter of 3 of the 4 shutouts that the Bows pitched this season, and he completed 5 or more innings in 11 of 14 starts. It's also the Big West Pitcher of the Week at the beginning of the season. Like we mentioned before, just a pair of really good building blocks for your pitching staff going forward. You also have second-teamer senior outfielder Matt Wong. He came back for another season, his final season of eligibility as well. Wong led UH in average home runs, RBI, runs, and slugging percentage this season, hitting .330, 10 home runs, 42 runs batted in, scoring 42 runs himself, and leading the team with a .563 slugging percentage.
This is a stat-driven team. I mean, they put up numbers this year, and again, it speaks volumes to who they are. As they did it collectively. You know what I mean? You look at like maybe Matt Wong's average really sticks out to you. Whenever you hit 330, that's pretty damn remarkable. But like, as a whole though, I think the pitching staff held the glue together. Here's the thing for the evolution though for this program is now that you've started to establish yourself as being able to produce some fine quality players, is now you got to take that next step. And you got to beat teams you need to beat. You look at it as like, things could be a lot different if they handled business in Riverside. And, as much as I love Riverside, that's where I'm from. I bleed the 909, but at the same time, you got to handle business when you play the no offense to UCR, the bottom dwellers of the league. And really, they just weren't good at all. You watch them play, there is no identity and anything like that. And to go to Riverside and get beat and handedly in a pivotal point in the season, on the back end of the season, where you really needed that series to make things really interesting, it could have been a lot different. This team could be playing, could have been playing in a regional, and so just think about that, how close they are, but yet how far they are. They beat some teams probably they had no business beating, but then they lost to some teams they really should have just smashed outright. And so you start to flip that, and you start to beat the teams and that you're supposed to beat, and you're supposed to beat the and then you hang with the ones that you're technically not supposed to. When in most years, your UCIs, your Cal State Fullertons and whatnot, and so you're able to do that again as the Big West gets better and better. Again starts to get back to that powerhouse they're so used to being. People want to complain about well, why doesn't the Big West have a conference tournament? Well, that's because people that are claiming that and are upset about that haven't watched Big West baseball all their life like I have. I growing up, I went to every Long Beach State game. I went to Cal State Fullerton games. Here's the thing is, normally on a normal year, that this league is a 3-4 bid team league. That's how good the Big West is in baseball. On a good year, I mean, if they get back, they've had a few down years, really since Hawaii's come into the fold. The Big West has been really kind of down a little bit, but you're starting to see it build again. And once you get that, when you get your UC Santa Barbaras, your Long Beach States, your Cal State Fullertons rolling on all cylinders, I'll tell you what, the UCIs also, this is arguably a 4-bid league, and you don't need a conference tournament, because all a conference tournament does is kind of hurts you. So
yeah.
So that's why with these guys like, oh, we need it. People who claim they need a tournament is because they're usually on the outside looking in.
Correct, because you need it to get into the tournament at the end. Obviously, it is frustrating if you're playing your best baseball at the end of the year, but you're 100% right. You can't wait until the end of the year to play your best baseball, especially in the Big West.
But I would say this. Can you honestly sit there and say Hawaii, we were playing our best baseball at the end of the season? Because if we were, it would have been a little bit closer and it would have been a little bit better. We got by in the last part of the season. We had a really strong middle part of the season. And so that's what I'm saying. The next evolution for this team, because they're so darn close, is really just put it all together from start to finish, or at least get a little bit more consistency. But man, Rich Hill is doing such a phenomenal job that they're honestly a year or two away from being a regional team and maybe sustaining it under Rich Hill to be a regional team year in, year out.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it with a ton of Hawaii programs where it just feels like they're one step away for the most part, where okay, you can see the progress being made. You can see the foundation being there, but it's those big losses like on the road, because this Hawaii team was phenomenal at home.
Yeah.
Ended the year with 9 straight wins at the less. You can't ask for a much better end to the season than that. But like you mentioned,
you got to win on the road.
You have to win on the road, especially the games that, like you mentioned, with no disrespect to the teams who finish in the bottom of the conference, the teams who aren't necessarily as strong. When you play them on the road, you cannot afford to drop those games, or even worse, drop the series, which the Bows did a couple of times.
Yeah, and it's only going to get harder as the years go on too, because you look like Cal State Northridge lately been on the bottom, but they're getting a huge stadium rebuild, so that's going to be able to bring in recruits. You look at UCR. They were bad this year, but they're normally not this as bad as they are as well. So it's not going to get easier. But here's the good thing about it for Hawaii baseball fans. It'll be the last thing I really say because we're running out of time and I don't want to keep us too long. But the reality of it is like, you look at the old program. That's the previous head coach. Great, phenomenal recruiter. Probably one of the best in the country. Brings in A+ talent. But the problem is when you recruit A-plus talent, guess what happens? They get drafted and they decide to go to pro ball out of high school rather than come here to the University of Hawaii. So then you got to rely on, okay, can you turn B players and C players into A and B players? And we just couldn't. We could never transition it. The Colton Wongs are really rare for what that, the former head coach had.
Absolutely.
Now you look at Rich Hill. I don't know about the recruiting quite yet, but I'll tell you what he is. He's a phenomenal teacher. He's a phenomenal instructor of the game, mentally and also physically, talent-wise. And so he's able to turn your C guys into B guys and your B guys into A guys. And that's what I'm saying is this roster is probably not, honestly, if you're being truthful to yourself, it's not where they want it to be. But the good thing is, and why they're able to sustain it and be able to still be good and competitive, is because Rich Hill and his staff are able to turn C's to B's, B's to A's, and that's pretty darn remarkable. And that's what you really look for in a head coach. You don't look for the pizzazz and the bright shining stars, because that's what Mike Trapasso. But you got to get the guys that can teach and relate. And the one thing that I'm pretty amazed is you look at the age of Rich Hill. He doesn't let it get to him. He's still able to relate to the kids today, and he's able to speak volumes to them, and that's what matters.
I think that is a phenomenal point to end off this segment on. It was overall a solid season for the Bows, only going to continue improving, and they're going to do that under the tutelage of Rich Hill and his staff. Going to step aside here on Wake Up in the Den. Don't go anywhere, though. Still plenty to talk about. You're listening to Wake Up in the Den on 95.1 FM and AM 760. Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Paul Brecht, Alan Mia back on the mics here today. First segment, chit-chatting about Hawaii baseball. Continue to chat about the U of H a little bit more to start out this segment before we move on to the Women's College World Series.
You've been hanging around Ku'ulei too much. The U of H.
Oh, my God. I don't even realize it.
Oh, you've been hanging around that girl too much.
Well, I guess I needed the break too, you know?
It's actually correct. It's just funny because normally we just say UH,
no,
right?
of course,
and
of
then
course.
U of H is usually the University of Houston. That's how we distinguish the two. Because there also are UH.
We are the better UH, though. That's what I've decided.
Yeah. What would you rather live, Houston or Hawaii?
Or Hawaii,
Oh,
yeah. I mean, funny enough, actually, quick sidebar. Two of my best friends from college, we actually got a tattoo together and all that stuff. That kind of crazy friendship where they moved to Texas.
Well, that's not awkward.
They moved to Texas to like post college. And they're like, oh, you should come visit.
You're like, no, I'm
like,
good.
You guys should come visit me. I live in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Like, I live in a much better place, much safer place,
So let me ask you, have they come out here, though?
No.
Oh, my.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, guys, anyway.
Might need time to rethink your friendships.
They're lucky they're such good friends, because otherwise, get the bad bat. Anyway, wanted to wrap up our UH baseball chat. I wanted to recognize the three honorable mentions who were selected to the Big West as well. Those were three infielders, Jacob Igawa, Kyson Donahue, and Stone Meow. Mentioned some fun statistics for our other three guys, so I wanted to get some for them. Igawa was actually second on the team with batting average, hitting .324, but he led the Bows with 66 hits this season and had a 13-game hit streak at one point during the year and hit safely in 21 of 22 games to end the year. He was a monster in the Big West as well. Hit .346 with a team-leading 27 RBI in conference play. Donahue, second on the team with 7 home runs, trailing just Matt Wong's 10. Second on the team in RBI with 40 and slugging percentage at .487. Had a 15-game hit streak during the month of March that ended up getting snapped, I believe, April 2nd. And then Stone Meow, the hero of senior weekend, which is funny enough because he is not a senior. He'll be back next year. He ended the season with a bang. 2 home runs in 2 days. His only 2 home runs of the season. that walk-off 2-run blast against UC Santa Barbara in the bottom of the ninth on that Saturday senior night to sweep the Gauchos and end out the season as the Big West Field Player of the Week. He led the team in batting average during conference play, hitting .356 and chipped in 19 RBIs. Also ended the season on a 10-game hit streak. So overall, pretty good end of the season. 4 of those 6 selections return next year, and like we were mentioning before, I'm excited to see what Coach Rich Hill and staff continue to do as they develop these players who very obviously put in the work, like to put in the work, and are coachable enough to improve throughout the season.
Yeah, and I think he does a phenomenal job, really, of letting the kids be kids, but at the same time making sure they mature year in, year out, and that's what you're starting to see with this team. He looked like a Matt Wong, right? Matt Wong matured a lot, and his plate discipline, and became a much better hitter this year than he was even last year, which is remarkable in itself too. And then Stone Meow as well, and so. I'm excited like you to see really what another year is. And then you look at like Stone Meow, what he did this year. What's he going to do next year with another year of maturity under his belt, a little bit more strength and physicality as well, just bulking up a little bit more heading into his senior year. And then you look at the other guys, your sophomores, and what are they going to do now with a year of freshmen and sophomores with another year of experience as well. So, it's exciting times. And then also, they're just getting started on the recruiting trail as well, so it'd be really exciting to see. But things are boding well for this program, and I think people just got to have patience. I know the state has been just clamoring and just wanting
patience.
Yeah, they've been wanting, which is funny, right? It's like an oxymoron out here, but because we don't want to make change, but at the same time we want change real fast, and so I know we want a winner. Because we deserve to have a winner. Because that's what baseball means to this wonderful state, and the people of our state. But it's going to take time. But if you can look at the last 2 years, the first 2 years under Rich Hill, I think we're a lot closer to it than we are with the other people that were in charge here, in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, no, you want to build a program that's going to give you sustainable success going forward. You don't want to build this one and done sort of farm where you can't keep talent for a while and you can't win or guys don't mesh together. I mean, look over on the softball side for Oklahoma. They're, I think now, 60-1 or something like that. Some ridiculous record. They have one loss the entire season, and that's a program that has continuously built it up into the powerhouse that it is, where now it's just that consistent winner that people want. It's not always going to be that way. I understand that.
Yeah, and you look at like Oklahoma, they've always been really, 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 really good. And then, I know Jocelyn Aloha gets a lot of the credit for like where they're sitting today, but you look at that lineup top to bottom, again, there's no holes, right? And you look like you thought like maybe there'd be a little bit of a drop off with no Alo there anymore because she graduated. This team is still hitting bombs after bombs after bombs, and it's from 1 through 9. And so Oklahoma and their program is really good, but it's been an indication of you keep the players home, and meaning like you don't let them go out and get drafted or anything, and you're able to kind of just start to build your program and teach and foster the next line of classmen. Things are going to bode well, and so far Rich Hill's doing a phenomenal job of that. And if you get the guys that get drafted, that's even better. Bodes well for your program because then the recruits see that, but then also you have guys ready to step in. And so, right now UH is kind of in that rebuild mode where they're just stocking talent right now to be able to replace and keep moving forward.
Absolutely. I did mention the softball on purpose there. We mentioned it right at the end of the show yesterday. We're going to talk about it a bit more today as well. We ran out of time yesterday. I wanted to talk about it, give you the update from yesterday, the happenings, and then give you what's going on here today. So just brief update on yesterday's results. Number 4, Tennessee doubled up number 5, Alabama 10-5 in the World Series opener before number 1, Oklahoma took down number 9, Stanford 2-0. Just the 7th game decided by 2 runs for the Sooners this season, by the way. The opening day's action closed with number 3, Florida State beating number 6, Oklahoma State. 8-0. And then today's action is actually already underway as number 7 Washington takes on number 15 Utah to open up this Aloha Friday slate. Game 2 of the day between Alabama and Stanford will have first pitch expected right around 1 p.m. Hawaii time. Before the winner of this Washington-Utah game plays Oklahoma State at 3:30 p.m. Hawaii time. So getting into... Actually, let's take a step away. We'll go take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll chit-chat a little bit more about softball. We'll chit-chat a bit about the NBA Finals. Whole bunch of good stuff coming up here on Wake Up in the Den. Don't go anywhere. Listening to Wake Up in the Den on 95.1 FM, AM 760. Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Paul Brecht, Alan Mia, taking care of the beautiful people on this Aloha Friday and for the short foreseeable future from 8 to 9 a.m. Hawaii time, Monday through Friday here on Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM, AM 760, and hawaiisportsradio.com. You can also catch this show and every other that we offer when or wherever you get most podcasts. That includes Wake Up in the Den, any play-by-play calls from the OIA and HPU seasons, and our whole year of Sharks Weekly shows, the finale of which came this past Wednesday with Jeffrey Rich chatting with HPU Athletic Director Debbie Snell. Ended the last segment a little panicked because I wanted to talk more about softball, and I knew we were up against the clock. I chatted about yesterday's results: Tennessee over Alabama 10-5, Oklahoma over Stanford 2-0, and Florida State over Oklahoma State 8-0. Alan, first question to you. Are you rooting for anyone in the Final 8 field, or is it just kind of enjoying it as a fan?
No, at this point in time, because, Hawaii's not in it, and I'm so close with that program, I don't root for anybody else, but I do watch it because I enjoy it. I enjoy the game of softball. I enjoy really the athleticism because it's truly remarkable when you see it up close and personal and you're around programs day in, day out. And so to see it on this level, and just knowing that Hawaii, deserves to be here too, and they're just kind of going through a rebuild as well, and so I just watch it because I just enjoy it. Like, I'm watching the Utah-Washington game, but we talked about yesterday, this was my most favorite matchup to see what was going to take place here in the opening round for the Women's College World Series, and it's living up to its billing. I mean, it's 2-1 right now in the top of the fourth. The Dogs and UW are going to make a pitching change here in the circle, so things are getting tight with the runner on for Utah. And so, but it was a matchup because they faced each other already multiple times this year, being both Pac-12 opponents. And now you're seeing them vying for, the coveted College World Series trophy.
Yeah. I mean, when you get to this point in the year, you almost laugh when you see somebody you've already seen throughout the season in a Pac-12 foe.
And you look at them right now, you look at the coaches, I think normally probably during league play, they got smiles on their faces. They look a little bit more relaxed. But because this is probably the third time of them seeing each other this year and in the College World Series, there's a little bit more stress on the faces of both coaches. And so you're really seeing some good softball. I know there was a little bit of an error, but she got bailed out on the ball. She stepped out of the box, the player, on her attempted swing. As she's a slap hitter. I don't know which player it was. I just turned it on when it happened, so I didn't get to see. But she was called out. But luckily, this could have been a different. If that doesn't get reversed, you're actually looking at a 2-2 ball game instead. So everything is in the finest of details right now when you get to this level and stage.
Yeah, when you get to these level of programs, it's the little things, and we talk about it all the time in sports, the little things, how much they matter. It's going to matter today for these guys as the winner of this game is going to play again. They'll play at 3:30 Hawaii time against Oklahoma State. So not a ton of rest for whoever wins this one.
No, and but softball players are used to it because the softball schedule in conference play is usually single double. And so they're used to having to play multiple games a day, especially in tournament play. You got to play at least 2 a day also in tournament play and non-conference. So these girls are ready for it. I think what you don't want is the big gap in between games. You'd like to be more maybe back-to-back, so that way you can just keep rolling and get it to go to over with, especially if you win, right? You want to keep that momentum going. What you don't want to do is go on a roll, and then you got to sit for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and then finally get back up and going when the team before you is probably just played right before you as well. So they're the ones with the momentum going.
That's an absolutely fair point. Another question here for you, Alan, as just a softball fan, and I'm glad you said that you weren't rooting for anyone, because that kind of means this question might actually be a little bit better for you. Was there a day one result that surprised you? Obviously, I'll go through them again. Tennessee 10-5 over Alabama, Oklahoma 2-0 over Stanford, and then Florida State 8-0 over Oklahoma State. Out of those 3 games, was there one that surprised you, or did day one kind of go as you expected it to be?
I think result-wise, it went as kind of what I expected. However, the one that I think that surprised me is the 8-0 win by Florida State. I think, generally when you get to this part of the season, you see a lot closer, tighter games, tighter pitch games, because usually to get to this point, it's probably because you have stellar pitching more than anything. And so to see an 8-0 mercy rule game in the College World Series, a little surprising to me for this year, but I think they went as expected. This game, I really see Washington winning it, but again, this is a coin flip, really. Even though you look at their seeds, you go like, 7, their ranking 7-15. Washington should run away with this. This Utah team's really darn good, and then they got 2 runners on now after a bleeder of a single. So, if Utah wins this game, I wouldn't be surprised. But I do think Washington will prevail out of this one. But I don't foresee any surprises. I know people go like, well, Oklahoma barely won 2-0. Yeah, that's Stanford team though. Have you seen them play?
They're pretty good, man.
Good Lord.
So one last question regarding softball. If Oklahoma's not going to be the team to win it, is there a team that you think the beautiful people should keep an eye out for here?
That's hard because there's no way I can't.
Because all of them are good.
No, I can't imagine Oklahoma not winning it. That's the
fair
problem.
Too.
Like I watched this team play and I just go, there's no way they lose, and that's something remarkable because you don't see that very often. Even like, the Alo teams, like you could go like, I could see them maybe dropping this or that, but this team I watch and I'm just like, I don't know. They're kind of on a different planet right now, and they're playing well. Sometimes you get these teams that are on a different planet than others, but they kind of like towards the end,
too early.
They peak too early, and then they start to falter in this stage of it. But this Oklahoma team is only getting better and better and better, and if they're continuing to get better, there's no one on the planet right now that can beat them. I'd say maybe watch out for that Stanford team.
It's funny you say that because I thought that, and you mentioned the 2-0 win, and you're like, oh, well, that Stanford team's pretty good. That was my thought. I was like, dang, that is a tough draw for Stanford to get in the opening round of the Women's College World Series.
I would say that Stanford team is probably next in line for me.
It wouldn't be crazy to see them continue to play their way back through, obviously, a double elimination type of bracket. Let's move along to the NBA now, as last night, first game of the NBA Finals. We talked about it, Heat versus Nuggets. It's in the Mile High City, the altitude. Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, all the names. Well, it was the Nuggets taking the game, 104-93. It seemed a lot... It was not as close, it felt, for most of the game, but then in the fourth quarter, it started to get closer once again, which is part of what the Heat do. They won't let you just get it easily. I say that while also thinking to myself, I didn't think the Heat played necessarily poorly, especially considering they took 2 free throws, and I'm not saying that's because of the officials. I'm saying they took 2 free throws. I don't think they were overall very aggressive. I think that they settled too much. Jimmy Butler only 13 points. They just didn't go into the lane all that often, and when they did go into the lane, it was an easy enough bucket. I don't want to call them soft, but they went in soft. And that's not what we're used to seeing from this Heat team during the playoffs.
No, you nailed it on the head. That was the one thing I was going to say, too. I know I spoke a little bit earlier that I just also don't think they had a game plan quite yet to figure out how to defend against the
Joker.
Yeah, the Joker. I always can't, for some reason, I can't say his last name. It just drives me nuts. And Jamal Murray. But I think they'll make the adjustments. But I think the main thing also was that I didn't get to say earlier too was just their aggressiveness just was not there. And I think that's nerves. Usually when you get to this point in the season, the finals, and you're not aggressive, a lot of times it's just nerves. You're kind of shell shocked a little bit. And so it takes you out of your own game and your own rhythm, right? And then, I thought, for Jimmy Butler, you can't have 13 points. That's it. This Miami Heat, lives and dies by you, unfortunately. And I know people go like, well, Adebayo had 26. Highsmith had, I think it was 18 or something like that. But you can't have Jimmy Butler only having 13. That's just the reality of it because you look on the other side. All the starters, 4 out of the 5 starters all had double-digit in points, 14, 16, 26, and 27. And then Caldwell had 7, of course. But then off the bench, Brown had 10. So you had 5 guys right there in double digits, and that's going to be tough to beat. You got to clamp down. But I think especially because the calls get a little bit tighter. I mean, not tighter. They start to soften up a little bit. They kind of let the players play in the finals because they want to see the best of the best go at it.
Yeah.
You got to be aggressive. If you're not going to be that aggressive to go down the lane to try to get those calls, you're not really going to have a chance. And that's what you saw in game 1. But look for Miami to make those adjustments. And I think especially for Jimmy Butler, he'll lead by example. And when he starts driving and he starts taking the game over on the inside, working from the outside into the interior, I think the rest of the team will follow.
I also just don't think Miami will shoot as poorly as they did. They obviously, or at least Max Strus, did not have as good a shooting game as he's had throughout these playoffs. Overall, the Heat just shot relatively poorly from 3, considering the looks that they got. Like, they ran decent offense. I wasn't overall shocked, loved the Nuggets defense. I thought it was fine, but I did not think it was something that held the Heat to 93. I thought the Heat held themselves a little bit more to 93. But on the opposite foot, I also think that there's more that you can get out of the Nuggets offense as well. I think they left some stuff on the table, not necessarily Jokic, not necessarily Murray, but Michael Porter Jr. did not shoot necessarily well. After the first quarter, Aaron Gordon didn't necessarily have as good or as big of an impact. There are a lot of different moves to still be made in this series, and I agree with you that I think the Heat, they needed a little bit more time to game plan. It was a quick turnaround, and it was always going to be difficult. You're playing against one of the most unique, if not the most unique big man of all time in Nikola Jokic, who, just talking skill-wise, he can knock it down from outside. He's also stronger than an ox. He can pass take your pick of greatest passers of all time while also rebounding. I mean, last night he posted his 9th triple-double of the postseason. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's truly insane, and MVPs are going to do MVP-like things, and that's what really he showed with the triple-double. But, you look at the stats, and the glaring issue is, again, we talk about like the Heat being aggressive, right? They lost by 11 points. Well, guess how many free throws more Denver made than the Heat?
Gotta guess it's somewhere like
14.
11. Yeah.
14 more free throws made because you look at the percentages of everything. Like, okay, you look at 2-point attempts. Well, the Nuggets only made one more than the Heat, but they had a better percentage at 50% compared to 40%. But then you look at the 3-pointers. The Miami Heat shot pretty well, I would say, for 3-pointer attempts, 33%. They made 13 of them, and Denver only made 8 at 29%, which is not bad itself. But, the Heat went in that aspect. The difference, though, is the free throws. Not being aggressive, taking it to Denver rather than, they were just kind of, like we said, maybe a little tentative. I don't know if it's necessarily soft because that's not the MO of this Eric Spoelstra-led team. I just think a little shell shock, a little bit of nerves, and just didn't want to be that aggressive team. But you got to take it especially when you're on the road. You got to at least take one.
It was loud in there too. No, I think Game 2 is. I don't want to call it a must-win for Miami, but it's as close to a must-win game as you can get without it necessarily being that, because it's going to be difficult to beat this team 4 out of 6 times let alone 4 out of 5 if you allow Denver to take the first 2.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, a lot of people will look, oh, it's early in the season, but I agree with you. I think it's a must-win for the Heat. More importantly, just because you want to at least take home court advantage. You want to take that back. If you can turn this into a thing where you gotta come back from anything, you at least want to have home court advantage from here on out. But you lose today, it's a big, tall uphill climb, and what you don't want to do is get down 2-0, lose one at home. Now you're down 3-0. And then you're looking at like a Boston Celtic type thing. You're going to have to win 4 in a row, and there's no wiggle room for error.
Right. No, it's something where you put yourself in a box or you back yourself into a corner. Don't want to do that. Going to have to step aside, but still going to have a little bit more conversation about last night's game, then talk very quickly about the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, the first game of the Stanley Cup Finals tomorrow, previewing that. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Wake Up in the Den, 95.1 FM, AM 760. Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Paul, Brecht, Alan, Mia with you on this Aloha Friday. Just another beautiful day here in Hawaii. Hey there, Bows fans, or families of Bows fans, I guess. The University of Hawaii at Manoa will put on a variety of youth camps this summer as the Rainbow Wahine tennis program, beach volleyball program, basketball program, volleyball program will all host multiple co-ed clinics and camps for kids. The Rainbow Warrior baseball and basketball programs will also join along in the summer fun with their Rainbow Wahine counterparts. You can find all of the information regarding all of the camps, including dates like today's kids beach volleyball camp. That's at 6 to 8 p.m. tonight. You can still sign up for that. All the links, all of the information you're going to need, find that on our website in the article, University of Hawaii at Manoa Youth Sports Camps Upcoming Summer 2023. That's on our website, hawaiisportsradio.com. Moving along, finishing up our NBA conversation, just wanted to give the beautiful people some cool stats I found regarding last night's performances from the Denver Nuggets star duo of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. According to the NBA, Nikola Jokic's 14 assists are the most by a player in his NBA Finals debut in league history. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray join Michael Jordan in 1991 and Russell Westbrook in 2012. A couple of no-names. As the only players to post 25 or more points, 10 or more assists, and 5 or more rebounds in an NBA Finals debut. They are also the second pair of teammates to reach those numbers in a Finals game ever, joining Magic and James Worthy back in 1987, their Game 1 performance. So cool little fun stats there. An all-time performance from the Nuggets duo as they took Game 1 over the Miami Heat, which is good because the Heat also could get sharpshooter Tyler Hero back for Game 2, a nice boost for them and their scoring lineup. Going to be interesting to see how that goes as well.
It's amazing to me when you mention like the likes of, being in the conversation of the likes of Michael Jordan for one, and then Russell Westbrook. Unfortunately, because Russell Westbrook's last couple of years, he won't ever get the credit he deserves, and the fact that he has no rings yet, he'll never get the credit of how special of a player that guy was. This is a kid who, literally, I slammed for leaving UCLA. I didn't think he was quite ready. I didn't think he was mature enough yet. I thought he still had more to give to UCLA while maturing up physically as well as just mentally. And then he just took the league by storm from the get-go. And it amazes me more he was not able to win with the likes of James Harden, and Kevin Durant at Oklahoma City. Although they were so super close, they just never could put it together because egos got in the way. And unfortunately, it's all three of them. Actually, you might even say 4, 5.
Yeah,
that whole team might have
there were some issues that underlie.
But you look at, to be in the conversation, though, of Russell Westbrook and Michael Jordan as far as triple-doubles and being able to do it in the playoffs and the final, dude, it's amazing. It's really amazing because those two players are special because Russell Westbrook, in my mind, is still a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that right away after you finished was both of them are Hall of Famers. Russell Westbrook is a Hall of Famer, despite what all of NBA Twitter might want to joke and get their jokes in about him over his last few years. This is a guy who, for multiple seasons, averaged a triple-double.
Yeah, not just multiple.
Right, like, it blows my mind how much disrespect the guy gets, especially as a competitor. Phenomenal. Great company to be in. Let's move along to the NHL quickly as we're running out of time here. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals tomorrow between the Florida Panthers and the Las Vegas Golden Knights. The Panthers got here after sweeping the Carolina Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Finals 3-2 in Game 1, 2-1 in Game 2, 1-0 in Game 3, and 4-3 in Game 4, while the Golden Knights dispatched the Stars in 6 games. Two of the younger franchises in the NHL, both looking to hoist the cup for the first time. The Panthers joined the league back in 1993, more than 75 years after the league's inception. In that span, the Panthers made the playoffs just 9 times and appeared in the Stanley Cup Finals just once back in 1996 when they got swept by the Colorado Avalanche. And then Las Vegas, they are the younger and newer franchise. The National Hockey League has seen the inaugural season for the Golden Knights came back in 2017, just 6 years ago. They also happened to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals in their inaugural season. They unfortunately lost to the Washington Capitals in 5. I say unfortunately. I guess unfortunately for Las Vegas fans, lost in 5 games. They've consistently made the playoffs in that time since 5 of the 6 seasons of their existence, but they still have yet to hoist Lord Stanley. So, Alan, I'm going to kick it to you. You are the resident hockey guy here at HSRN. You have any predictions for us? Yeah, any thoughts going into this series?
Evenly matched series, top to bottom. I think so. You look at if they're evenly matched. So basically, when I say evenly matched, you look at statistical categories between the two teams, and it's pretty much back and forth. You know, the Golden Knights are going to be here. The Panthers are going to be here. Is like, okay, who's got the better offensive forwards? Well, that's the Golden Knights. Who's got the better defense? Well, that's Florida. And so you go down the line of everything. So really, what's it come down to then? If they're evenly matched, what's it come down to? Well, that's goaltending, and that would give the edge right now to Florida on that, with Bobrovsky being the goaltender, 11-2 in this playoff run, save percentage of .935, and so he's been lights out. Now you'll say, well, he played Toronto, he played Washington, yeah, but he had to go up against the likes of, I don't know, number 8, Ovi. And so, but I think Bobrovsky is just got a little bit more, star power to him as far as being behind the net, and that's in front of the net. And that's no knock on Adam Hill for the Golden Knights. And of course, you got Jay Quickie behind him as the backup, although he's past his prime, of course. But I give the edge to Florida, and I'll tell you why. The trade they made in the offseason to get Tkachuk has worked out remarkably. And I think he's the X factor in it, because he's that pest, but he's not just a pest. He's a pest with skill. And then that's a dangerous combination. And he gets under your skin, but then he backs it up with this play, both physically as well as offensive talent-wise too, and leadership. And so I think the edge is slightly towards Florida. I know people will hate me, especially, Ku'ule, because she's such a big Golden Knights fan. But I think the edge right now is with Florida. But, man, this Golden Knights team, because they're young, and they still – I don't know what it is about the Golden Knights. They still play with this chip on the shoulder, as if for every player that's on that team, it's like no one wanted us. So it's us against the world mentality. And it works for them with their show, with all the show elements they have in their home arena at T-Mobile Arena and everything like that. They utilize it to the best of the ability. They all play with this chip on the shoulder. It's like no one, the other teams in the league didn't want us. So we're going to go out there and show them we're better, and we deserve to be wanted.
Put exceptionally well. Going to be a really fun series to watch. You mentioned it, pretty evenly matched, and also for those who are hating on the Panthers, I'm pretty sure they took down the historic team in the Boston Bruins. Am I correct?
Oh, yes,
in that?
yes. Sorry, I forgot to mention the Boston Bruins. Poor team. What was this is Boston is like I saw a stat, something like Boston is like the first place or city to have multiple sports teams in, as going as the number 1 seed and losing the first round to a number 8 seed. I think Boston's the only city to ever have that happen.
That's pretty brutal. Well, hopefully, at least for the Panthers, they have a much more competitive end to their season than the Bruins did. For Alan Mia, I'm Paul Brecht. Thanks for listening to Wake Up in the Den. Bye!